and now non-breakfast since 2010, and it's always something a lot of us look forward to, and I know the college university presidents also look forward to it as well. So let me go ahead and thank everyone for being here in attendance today. In particular, thank our speakers, which will be introduced momentarily. I'll just give you two things real quick, actually three, but two things real quick on the front end. First, I'm going to put a plug in for our e-newsletter today. It's chock full of information. I looked at it last night. We changed one thing. We're changing one thing this morning, but it should be out. It's got a lot of good information in there. We have been trying throughout this whole situation, pandemic, from a chamber perspective, to really keep on top of things, working closely with our partners, the city, the county, and other partners, the partnership, the tech council. I'm sorry if I'm missing anybody here. Nick's been on there, JMU, professional continuing education, HDR, and I'm thinking that's our task force. But again, this has been a great partnership with a lot of folks. Again, just trying to see the community through this, particularly our small business. So we appreciate that. But again, a lot of good information in there. So make sure you look at that specifically today. Also, you will be muted, hopefully. Stay muted, if you will, please, while our speakers are speaking. If you do have any questions, please send them through the chat, or send me a direct chat or text if you got my cell phone. And then after everyone is done speaking, I'll go ahead and moderate some of the questions. The last thing is that this is an interesting event today because it sort of ties in a lot of things, the college, the current pandemic. This came up a few minutes ago before everybody got in. But in honor of my old college days tying together with the pandemic of today, here's my message of the day: grateful distancing. I really, really wanted a breakfast. I did not know, quite honestly, if my wife would even let me out of the house to go, since I've only been to 2 events with real people since March. But it is nice to see everyone here, and to, again, make sure from the chamber perspective that we are adhering to all the guidelines and trying to keep people as safe as possible, and social distancing is one of the reasons. So with that, let me go ahead and turn it over to Frank Oncken, our chair of the chamber board this year.
Thanks, Frank, and good morning, everyone. Thank you to our membership, guests, elected officials and their representatives, the press, and our esteemed panel for joining us on Zoom for this great annual event. As Frank mentioned, I'm Frank Oncken. We're collectively known as the Franks. Vice President at A&J Development and Excavation, and board chair for the Harrisonburg-Rockingham Chamber of Commerce. I want to say a couple of quick words on behalf of the chamber and echo a bit of what I wrote several weeks back in the chamber's quarterly publication, The Advocate. How things have changed since our last presidential address, and indeed over the last 6 months. As everyone has experienced, the world and business climate have taken a sharp turn towards the surreal. However, in times like these, and maybe it's become a little cliched, but you often hear to look for the helpers. The chamber has been here to help. I'm really proud of the hard work the chamber has done to continue helping and advocating for our local and regional business community, and to offer guidance and support as businesses navigate these unprecedented conditions. With initiatives like the Harrisonburg-Rockingham COVID-19 Business Support Task Force that is supplying grants to local businesses impacted by the pandemic, to the Business Impact and Recovery Survey, Frank Tamberrino and the chamber took immediate and impactful steps to help our businesses react and recover. Those efforts are ongoing and continuous. Recently, the Diversity Business Council of the Harrisonburg-Rockingham Chamber of Commerce has begun to take action in the community. In partnership with, among others, the City of Harrisonburg, Rockingham County, Harrisonburg Downtown Renaissance, the Small Business Development Center, and our founding sponsors, Molson Coors and Interchange Group, This initiative has emerged to specifically engage and support minority-owned businesses by offering sponsored chamber memberships and mentoring, among other resources, through our new B Cubed initiative. I'd like to point out also that while B Cubed efforts have become more quickly illuminated in light of recent civil unrest surrounding racial injustice and inequity, the Chamber and Diversity Business Council was already leading and advocating for this proactively. In summary, the needs of our business community have always and always will be the Chamber's beacon. When a need arises, the Chamber rises. I ask that you remember that when making those tough budgetary decisions in the coming months. The Chamber is here to help you during the good times, but more importantly, during the tough times. Please be there for us as our event and sponsorship revenues have slowed over the past several months. And with that being said, our annual golf tournament is on September 10th, with several sponsorships still available. Reach out to the Chamber for details, please. Renew your memberships and ask those that you know that may benefit to join the Chamber. Thanks for hearing me out on that. Now I'll read through the panel of university and college presidents' bios and turn it over to them for their addresses. Dr. John Downey has been with Blue Ridge Community College since 1992, serving in various capacities in both student services and academic affairs before being named president in 2009. John received his undergraduate degree from Lemoyne College, a master's in counseling psychology from Boston College, and doctorate in higher education administration from UVA. John is passionate about the value of education under the Virginia Community College system, and especially at BRCC. He is a past chair of the Shenandoah Valley Partnership and is the immediate past chair of our Chamber of Commerce. I had the great pleasure of working with and learning from Dr. Downey as chair-elect when he was Chamber Board Chair last year. Also, he's a big Syracuse sports fan, but only when they're winning. Dr. Susan Shultz Huxman has served as president of Eastern Mennonite University since January 2017. She has served more than 25 years in higher education, coming to EMU from Conrad Grable University College in Waterloo, Canada. She is a graduate of Bethel College with a degree in English and holds a master's and PhD in communication studies from the University of Kansas. Susan oversaw EMU's centennial celebrations in 2017 and has focused on strategic visioning and broadening the awareness of EMU's academic programs, rankings, and successes as EMU's president. Dr. David Bushman became president of Bridgewater College in 2013. Many of you that know me also know that my wife works at Bridgewater College and at times closely with Dr. Bushman. So I must say, I personally have found him to be one of the smartest, kindest, most empathetic, most generous, friendliest, warmest, most in-shape people I've ever met. He's a great dad. He's really artistic. He has a great skincare routine. Meg, did I miss anything? Just nod your head. She's out there somewhere. Just kidding. I'm really not kidding. He's a great guy. Anyway, Dr. Bushman came to Bridgewater College from Mount St. Mary's University in Emmitsburg, Maryland. Prior to that, he served as president of Lees-McRae College in Banner Elk, North Carolina. Dr. Bushman earned his Bachelor of Science in Biology from Loyola College in Maryland. He graduated from the University of Maryland with both his Master of Science and Doctorate in Entomology. He's overseen a re-energized alumni and increase in donors, including the funding and construction of the library expansion. John Alger became the 6th president at JMU in 2012. He has overseen the continued growth of the student base and campus facilities, including the new College of Business building and new Convo Center nearing completion. Prior to coming to JMU, he served as Senior Vice President and General Counsel at Rutgers University. He received a BA in Political Science from Swarthmore College in Pennsylvania and a law degree from Harvard Law School. John is bringing all of his experience and connections to the forefront as JMU continues to build both quality programs and new facilities to meet growing demand. The JMU president has sung with acclaimed choral groups that have toured internationally, made professional recordings, and performed on national television. So those are the bios, and at this point, we'd like to turn it over to Dr. Downey for his talk.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for attending. If we can't be together in a room, at least we're together on Zoom. So my little rhyme for the day. I want to especially thank my the presidential colleagues. Together in the Valley, we provide an amazing network of workforce development and education that's a significant driver of economic development. So what we do makes a difference for this region. And all of us realize that we couldn't do that effectively at all without the great support of the business community, and we are deeply appreciative of that. As you know, the topic on everyone's mind this year is COVID-19, and each of us are required to submit to the State Council of Higher Ed for Virginia a reopening plan and post those plans on the website. So you're able to go to each of our websites and see our reopening plan if you're interested. SHEV then certifies them as compliant. And in our case, the Virginia Community College system as well had to certify it as compliant. Blue Ridge has decided that we will be primarily online for the fall, with exceptions being made for career and technical education courses that cannot be taught online. That constitutes somewhere between 20 and 30% of our overall enrollment will be in person. As part of our plan, every student enrolled at the college, whether they'll be online or in person, will take a short course on COVID so that we're sure everybody has the same information, the same accurate information about COVID-19 and starts the year off with that information. In addition, each student who will be coming to campus for instruction will sign a form that indicates that they understand all of the parameters that will allow them to stay on campus, including not coming to campus if they're sick, wearing a mask, and so on and so forth. Our faculty are amazing. Blue Ridge has a long history of delivering instruction online, so we're quite prepared for what we're about to engage in. Our faculty spent the better part of the summer engaging in additional professional development help that we provided for them. And our staff are also incredible in terms of creating innovative methods to personalize the online delivery of services. For example, our student services staff created a Zoom room where individual students who are interested in coming to Blue Ridge can go into the Zoom room, and they're greeted by a faculty member or a staff person who then finds out what they need and triages them to the appropriate office for additional services. So at Blue Ridge, we've trying to, whether you're in person or online, trying to work really hard to make sure our services and our courses and our programs are personalized. I mentioned the wonderful colleagues that I'm privileged to work with. You'll not see a better set of university and college presidents anywhere in the country, I'm convinced. They're just wonderful to work with. And during the past year, we've made significant strides together to create seamless pathways from the K-12 educational system and our wonderful technical centers in the region, through the associate degree and non-credit workforce training courses that we offer, and on to the baccalaureate degree and master's and doctorates as well. So we offer in this valley the wide range of workforce skills that almost any company would need. I'd like to talk about some of the successful partnerships we worked on this year. With both Eastern Mennonite University and Bridgewater College, we updated our guaranteed admission agreements. At both institutions, students who complete an associate's degree with us are considered to have met all of the general education requirements at both institutions, with the exception of a couple of courses. And that's a huge benefit to our students. Both colleges have created wonderful transfer guides and websites to help Blue Ridge students navigate the transfer process. At James Madison University, Blue Ridge has always enjoyed a wonderful guaranteed admission agreement. I've been around Blue Ridge long enough to know that we were the first college in the state that signed a guaranteed admission agreement with James Madison University. And that guaranteed admission agreement allows for junior standing for students who graduate from Blue Ridge, and has just been seamless in most majors, and it's wonderful. But we also partnered this year on a $2.5 million incentive grant that the state provided for us to jointly work with Merck Pharmaceuticals on workforce development. And I've been honored to work directly with Melissa Lubin on that project, and it's resulted in incredible achievements already. Our project director, Kathleen Gass, has done a great job making sure that the relationship between the company and us is seamless, and make sure all of us work together. And that project, as we meet Merck's needs, will then expand to other manufacturers in the region as well. Already in the program, we've developed a unique internship program for students at Blue Ridge and James Madison University. They can gain direct workforce experience, and it's been, I think JMU has sent them something like 20 interns, maybe even more. Melissa would know the exact number. And a few of them have been transfer students from Blue Ridge Community College and started out with us. So it's a unique partnership, and they're learning tremendous amounts of information from Merck. We also, in that project, helped our faculty learn direct workforce applications, so that when they're teaching theoretical concepts in science, they can understand how those theoretical concepts apply at manufacturers like Merck. And so that new internship program or partnership program with our faculty at JMU and Blue Ridge is also a tremendous asset to the region. Both JMU and Blue Ridge have modified our curriculum and tailored it to make sure that the content that we're teaching directly applies to manufacturers like Merck. And we're happy to do that for other employers as well. We think it's very important that our curriculum include practical applications and internships, so that students can gain real life experience as they go through the programs. Finally, Blue Ridge faculty members are working closely with James Madison faculty members to map out transfer pathways major by major to ensure the seamless transfer of credits for each major at the university. So that program started last year, and with a couple of different majors, and is working out very well so far. We're also very proud of the success of our Go Virginia cybersecurity program that we partnered with the city on. We're at the tail end of the funding for that grant, but we're very proud to say that the grant will continue beyond the life of the funding. We found a way to sustain that grant, and we've already trained countless students in cybersecurity certifications that now work in the Shenandoah Valley for companies all over the state, including Northern Virginia. And the success of that program resulted in at least one company coming down to the Valley and setting up shop, because they're so pleased with the graduates they're getting compared to what they can get in Northern Virginia. Often in Northern Virginia, the competition's so great that companies steal employees from each other. And so to have the ability to come down here and get employees who work remotely for that company is working out wonderfully. So a shout out to Dan O'Brien and my staff at the college, who are doing a great job with that program. Our work with the local school divisions is critical to the success of the region. We provide career coaches in all of the local schools, whose only job is to work individually and collectively with students to help them understand the wide range of jobs available to them and the pathway that it takes to get to those jobs. and also the pathways that it takes to get through the baccalaureate degree at these institutions that we partner with. Our career coaches do an amazing job. We also value highly the early college programs that we have in dual enrollment. The school divisions work really well with us to give some students access to those early enrollment programs. And for many students, when they get to the four-year college or university, it lightens their load to have a few courses under their belt, and then they can have a lighter load as freshmen or sophomores. So we're proud of that program. And of course, our partnerships with the technical centers as well. No doubt that this will be a very challenging year for all of us, but I'm buoyed by the fact that all of you support all of us so much. And that sustains me as we go through this ongoing crisis. Our faculty and staff have risen to the occasion. I want to thank my vice presidents. Bob Young is on the call. I don't know if Cynthia Page is on the call or not, but both of them have worked countless hours trying to plan for what turns out to be often a change of plans. So as soon as you get one thing set, one of the most challenging things about this crisis is something new happens or you get new information that makes you change that plan. And so the word of the semester or the year, I believe, is flexibility. And I think all of the institutions presenting today are proud of the flexibility we've been able to achieve. So with that, I'll turn it over to our next speaker and appreciate the opportunity to answer any questions you may have later on.
All right, well, thanks very much, John. Good to see my colleagues and so many who after year 3, I'm getting to know. One of the beauties of Zoom is to just look at faces and to make eye contact. Just beautiful these days. Well, good morning to all of you. As you know, my name is Susan. I am president of Eastern Mennonite University. And how many times have some of us said, oh, to be a president in a pandemic? I'm not sure any amount of experience prepares you for the white waters of COVID and how to keep your raft and your precious cargo afloat. And I say that even as an academic who used to teach crisis communication for many, many years. In a global crisis of this magnitude, one of the first things that changes dramatically is our experience of time. What day is it, right? Sort of like in Alice in Wonderland, when Alice falls asleep and her dreams take her down a rabbit hole and a whole new topsy-turvy adventure awaits her, sometimes in warp speed, sometimes in freeze frame. So speaking of the time shifts, I've completed 3.5 years at EMU. As Frank noted, I began in January of 2017. So the first 3 years have flown by. These past 6 years, I've just realized, have only been 6 months. So I want to express a heartfelt thank you to the Chamber of Commerce, to its staff and board, and to Frank and Frank, both Frank brothers, for organizing this event, even without breakfast this year. And look at how many of you came anyway. I'd say that is quite amazing. All of us have logged many Zoom meetings, and again, this virtual format has become our new normal. We have mobile offices, changing backgrounds, and even most of us have figured out the chat features and how to use second screens for multitasking rather discreetly. The best part for me, no need for high heels. But I assure you that I have not gone the route of no pants. So today, I'd like to give you an EMU update by framing my remarks around the 3 R's, not reading, writing, and arithmetic, but resilience, recognition, and reassurance. So let me begin with resilience. Our COVID response at EMU has taken place in stages, each stage showing a different kind of resilience. Stage 1 was rapid response, Beginning at mid-March through the last 8 weeks of the semester, we moved as a campus community with astonishing speed and care to respond to an array of complexities. We quickly got all our students safely back to their homes, including those studying abroad in Guatemala. We quickly ramped up for all courses and key support services online in 2 days and a weekend. And we communicated with care and compassion what and how our educational pivot was designed to keep our students safe and to get them to the finish line strong. Best of all, our students gave us a vote of confidence, especially to our faculty and staff in their last weeks of classes, responding to a survey with a 95% vote of confidence for the exemplary care they received through that all online personalized instruction. We graduated 429 students this past spring, even though the class of 2020 did not experience an in-person graduation. We had 300 undergraduates, 125 graduate degrees and certificates awarded, including seminary, and 4 students earned our first doctorate degree at EMU, a DNP, the Doctorate of Nursing Practice. Resilience was also on display in the second stage of our COVID crisis, resource and revenue recovery. Like the entire higher education sector, the pandemic created financial challenge and uncertainty for EMU and its students. Through the CARES Act and the Paycheck Protection Program specifically, we received so much needed financial relief, and we are most thankful. Even with the loss of nearly all summer revenue because our many camps and in-person courses were canceled, and even with room and board reimbursements that we had to make from spring residence hall closures, we still ended our fiscal year on June 30th with a balanced budget and margin, and this is no small victory. This marks 3 years in a row that EMU has generated income in its end-of-year operating budget, and that makes our trustees and lenders and accreditors very happy. Still, we know that financial challenges will loom large this academic year. While our enrollment this fall looks good, knock on wood, slightly better than last year for new students, we know great economic uncertainty burdens our students and their families. In response, I'm very gladdened by our fundraising efforts and our advancement team, many of them here on the call today. In recent months, EMU donors and alumni set a new record for annual unrestricted support, 8% above last year, and we had a good year last year. Donors gave generously to 2 specific funds to COVID-19 relief, the University Fund for Resilience and the Student Tuition Relief Fund. Several of these generous contributions came on Love EMU Day, which is my background for this morning. And I am so very thankful for these loyal investors, even in the most challenging of times. Resilience has certainly been on display as we ready ourselves for stage 3 of the COVID crisis, our plan to reopen for fall in-person instruction. We will do so without Division III ODAC athletics. All fall varsity sports programs have been moved to the spring. How we will play all 19 of our varsity sports in one 16-week season remains to be seen, but we're kicking that can down the road for now. We begin our fall semester Tuesday, August 25th, a week earlier than normal with in-person classes. Though all our classes have been adapted to embrace a high flex model, meaning that students may either access their courses online or in person, we will eliminate fall break in terms of not encouraging people to leave campus, and then we will send students home at Thanksgiving break. We will offer all final exams online, and if health authorities in the state and locally tell us we need to go all online for a point in time earlier, based on outbreaks, we are at the ready to do that. Flexibility and quick pivots are our watchwords. We think we are especially well equipped to live into these major readjustments. Why? We have built a reputation at EMU as a caring community with small classes, personal attention, and instructors, mentors, and coaches committed to walking alongside students and nurturing students individually. So even as we practice social distancing, wearing our masks, which of course are branded, washing hands, taking daily screen tests online to determine who is asymptomatic and who is symptomatic and in need of further testing, we are reimagining with authenticity what it means to be a community of learners. We are committed to creating a culture of care that both expresses our values and maintains health and safety protocols. Yes, it may take a village to raise a child, but it takes a committed and caring faculty and staff to prepare a campus for reopening in the midst of a global pandemic. So resilience is one R. Very briefly, a second R is recognition. Even amidst the seismic disruption of the coronavirus, we racked up milestones, academic and athletic, such as a team of EMU computer science and engineering students placed first out of 49 teams from the United States, France, Hong Kong, and the Netherlands in the 2020 Code Breaking Challenge. EMU ranked among the best on the Wall Street Journal Times Higher Ed 2020 college rankings. The well-respected NSSE survey, the National Survey of Student Engagement, just released their results this week. Our graduating seniors rated 14% higher than the national average on community engagement and high-impact experiential learning. 100% of our EMU accounting students who sit for the CPA exam pass. EMU ranks second in Virginia with a first-time pass rate. That's more than 20% above the national CPA average. 100% of job-seeking EMU nursing students, teacher education students, and business and leadership students had jobs or have accepted jobs to start soon in the past 6 months after graduation. And this was our inaugural year of varsity triathlon at EMU for women, a grueling sport that combines running, cycling, and swimming. One of our competitors right here in our first year, her name is Abigail Shelley from Mississippi. She finished 13th in the nation and was named an All-American Scholar Athlete. It was an amazing experience, and you can see the amazing EMU triathlon season on YouTube. It's just called EMU Triathlon. It was also the inaugural varsity season for women's lacrosse. We only got 2 matches in, including a home win in mid-March, just before the pandemic struck. EMU set a new record with 118 ODAC All-American honorees, surpassing last year's record of 106. So recognitions for EMU did not slow down or come to a screeching halt in this pandemic. A third R is reassurance, and that is that learning marches on as we prepare for a bright future. We have 3 new certificate programs at EMU. They were rolled out this summer: trauma and resilience in educational environments, trauma and resilience in healthcare settings, and transformative leadership. We have new diversity initiatives. The deaths of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and many others created a racial reckoning for us around an equally insidious virus, the virus of racism. Beginning with observing Juneteenth as a paid holiday, the EMU community is preparing to put our strategic plan on afterburners around a central pillar of our plan, diversity, beginning with hiring our first full-time senior leader in diversity, equity, and inclusion, engaging as a campus community around intercultural competency training, and conducting a cultural audit around what EMU does well and not so well in terms of diversity education. We have high standards at EMU around the topic of diversity and justice. Our mission calls us to do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with God. And finally, accreditation is upon us in a big way. We sure hope this is going to be reassuring. I put it under reassurance, and then I wondered about that. But we've been preparing for accreditation for over a year. This is our year for a comprehensive institutional review from our regional accreditor, SACS, the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools. It comes around only every 10 years. I mean, it's a big, big deal. And this fall also brings important accreditation evaluation for 3 key programs: our seminary, teacher education, and our engineering program. So R is for reassurance that learning marches on. So this is a 3 R's snapshot of EMU in 2019-2020 in an academic year like no other. I want to close with a brief story. This summer, not only did our faculty gear up for redesigning their courses for multiple contingencies this fall, many of them went the extra mile. They did something amazing, in my view. 16 of them, representing a large cross-section of academic fields, huddled to create the curriculum for and offer a free 7-week online course about the pandemic. This course was led by a language and literature professor and a professor of chemistry. But each week, a different duo would debate and discuss cutting-edge topics. Week 1, what do we know about the biology of COVID-19 and what's next in vaccine development? One professor from biology, another from nursing, led this class. Week 2, what can we learn from past pandemics about life after this one? A prof from history and a prof from math squared off. Well, you get the picture. Each week, from politics and collective trauma around COVID to wet markets and zoonotic viruses, systemic racism before COVID, resilience and repair after COVID, and on and on. For 2 hours each Tuesday night, the class met. Students could receive credit or no credit as a free 1-credit course. It was a $400 value. The best part of it is this: it was a hit. 180 students signed up for the course. Half were EMU students, half were community members. Registration came from across the United States, as well as Puerto Rico, Canada, Brazil, and Japan. Young students and older community members worked together in group sessions to engage around the vexing topics that the pandemic presents from so many perspectives. As some students said in course evaluations, all summer long, as the pandemic was raging, I looked forward to Tuesday nights. It was my bright spot. Finding light amidst the darkness is education at its best, especially in a crisis. Why crisis, the word itself, means both danger and opportunity. It means both emergency and breakthrough. It means both contraction and growth. And as educators, we must be equipped to bring to light both sides. So blessings to each of you in these uncertain times. We at EMU take sustenance in being a part of the city of Harrisonburg and the beautiful Shenandoah Valley. Next week, we stand ready to welcome hundreds of new students to the EMU community. We are the EMU Royals, and we have a new lion mascot that we're going to roll out very, very soon. And so we will strive to give each one of our students a new, one-of-a-kind royal welcome. Thank you.
Wow. Well, good morning, everybody. So I moved a little closer to the screen, which means I have to put my reading glasses on. I apologize for that. First, I just want to say, Frank, wonderful introduction today, and you look great. I mean, just fantastic, Frank. You look just super. Meg, I'm sorry I had to say that. I apologize if I create any difficulty there for home later tonight. Frank and Sarah, thank you for putting this together, and thank you all for being on our Zoom call today. One of the nice parts about coming third in the lineup is that I get all the ideas from the speakers who've gone before me. So John and Susan, thanks. On the downside, coming after John and Susan, there's almost nothing left for me to say. Like my colleagues, Bridgewater, we've been involved, in COVID. In fact, the last year seems like Susan has said 6 years in the last 6 months. When I've been thinking about the last academic year, it really was 2 years put together. last August, we started the semester and we went through the whole fall semester and began the spring. And then in the last 6 months, it's a completely different world. There were really 2 years. And I was reminded of this just recently. I was putting together my annual self-evaluation for the Board of Trustees. And I realized it felt like I hadn't done it in a couple of years, because in fact, last year was 2 years all rolled together. So let me talk a little bit about how Bridgewater has responded to the COVID crisis, what we're looking ahead. But I also want to be mindful, and I want to make sure you know, as with all of our institutions, we're not just living day to day. Life does go on. These institutions will be here after this crisis. And so while we're certainly responding on a day-to-day basis to many things, we're also planning for what comes next year, the next decade, and then in many cases, some projects that will be fulfilled long after I'm gone from Bridgewater. So let me talk a little bit about how last academic year went, because there were some significant accomplishments here at the college. There are some things we're very proud of. We were proud of then, and we certainly are now. And I feel bad in a lot of ways, much like our senior class who didn't get an in-person commencement, who couldn't celebrate in the traditional ways. I feel bad for all the work that many of our faculty and staff, all of us put in to achieve some really great things, and we didn't have the opportunity to celebrate them. And so let me talk a little bit about that. First, we've launched a new strategic plan. We're now entering year 2. We just, about a month ago, the senior staff and I went through last year's goals and objectives. It's remarkable what you can accomplish when you have a great team. And we certainly do here. I could not have a better group of vice presidents and senior staff and directors, everybody across the board, just fantastic group. And some of them are on this call as well. In that strategic plan, and it's pretty wide ranging, but the accomplishments, the things that we have put in place to move are already visible. You probably know we have a new logo now, the interlocked B and C for Bridgewater College. That wasn't the goal of our rebranding initiative. We were really trying to articulate with clarity and precision and passion what makes Bridgewater distinctive in higher education. All of us share so many things in common, Blue Ridge and EMU and JMU. But what makes each of us distinctive? And that whole exercise around articulating that brand, that distinctive identity, resulted in a whole new way of communicating, a new website that just got launched, the new logo that you've seen. And the theme in all of it is about connections. What we do differently, what I think we do better than anybody, is establish the connections, because we know that the great things in life, the great challenges, can only be accomplished when we work together. In many ways, this Zoom call represents that. I think we are part of a bigger community, and we can only be successful when we're part of a larger community and share in your successes as well. So that branding platform has been launched. It's been so well received by prospective students and donors. That was a big deal. That's a huge amount of work. Anybody on this call in marketing or communications knows the challenges around that. And we did that, I think, exceptionally well. And I'm thrilled to be able to distinguish and articulate what makes Bridgewater a very special place with consistency. The big project, the one that I hope many of you have seen, and if you haven't, you will one day, we completed a renovation and expansion of our library. The Mack Library was built in 1965. And so I've made a commitment to the Bridgewater community that we will renovate our library every 50 years, whether it needs it or not. And so we've now completed that project. But we didn't just renovate, we didn't just put new furniture in. That project was almost 6 years in the making, a grassroots effort to design what a modern academic library should be. What should it do? It has to function differently, because the way students learn and the nature of what they're learning has changed pretty dramatically, even in the last decade. So we had design teams, we had students, faculty, staff, really doing a study. What should it do? And that study informed hiring the architects. They did the focus group work. It was a very special project. And of course, then we had to raise the money for it. And I am so proud of the work our advancement team did. It ended up being a $13 million project, and we raised north of $12 million for that. So we essentially funded that entire project through philanthropy. I think that speaks both to the quality, not just the quality of the staff, certainly, that we have, Maureen and Meg and everybody in our development office. But I think it also speaks to the quality and the impact of that project, because we all know that we support things we believe in. And our alumni, our friends, the community believe so deeply in the power of success, the power that this project could have on the success of our students, that they supported it. I will tell you as both a percentage and a dollar figure, that project, that one building fundraising effort, was the largest in the college's history as a single project in absolute dollars, but also as a percentage of total cost. I could not be more proud of that, of what that says about the college. And you should know, and many of you participated in that, and I thank you for your support in so many different ways. You should also know that I make sure our students know that people who don't share their last name, who aren't their parents or grandparents or aunts and uncles, believe so much in their success that they were willing to write a check for that success. So the Learning Commons, it's not even a library anymore, is designed around collaborative learning. It has our writing center, tutoring, career center, all of these are in there. We wanted it to be a one-stop shop for student success. And we designed it to do exactly that. It's a very visible building. You can see the sight lines in the building. Students want to be collaborative. They want to see each other, even if they're working individually. The building got bigger by about 30%, and it just looks fundamentally different. It's become the jewel. It is the heart of campus, no doubt. I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled. This may come as a surprise to some of you. Sometimes construction capital projects run over. They take longer than what the architects and the general contractors say. We had a little bit of that. We did finally open the building last February, and we got to use it for exactly 2.5 weeks. 2.5 weeks before our students were required to leave campus for remote learning. So it still has new building smell. It is a jewel. I encourage you, when we are able to all enter buildings, and none of us are able to do that on any of our campuses now. We're not open to the public that way right now. Please do come by and see it. It's an exceptional project, and it's going to have a huge impact on the college. So the Learning Commons, the branding platform, we've launched new programs, donor-supported programs around high-impact practices, undergraduate research, our study abroad, our globalization program to help lower the barriers for students to study abroad, an internship programs sponsored by our alumni, funded by donors, not just to provide internship opportunities. We certainly want those connections. But the reality in today's world is many of our students have to work. They have to choose when they're not in school. Do they have a part-time job, or do they take advantage of, say, an internship? They can't do both. So the idea here was to provide a stipend for students that they could do an internship, even if it's unpaid. And the donor support would provide their earnings for that, so they wouldn't have to take a part-time job. Those are all part of our strategic plan. The Career Center, probably one of the most important value-added pieces of higher education today, is the linkage, the integration of what students do in the classroom and on campus with what they will do after they leave. And our Career Center is going to get a substantial reimagining in very much the same way that the old Mac Library was reimagined. It became something extraordinary. Our Career Center is being reimagined. And so our study group worked for a year to determine what a modern academic career services department should be, what it should do. We've got that report, and we are now, we're in the process of actually deciding on a new physical location. That'll be part of our next comprehensive campaign to renovate some space on campus for an expanded and fundamentally different reimagined Career Center. I'm very excited about that work, and students and families, prospective students, their families, everybody knows, you all know how important that project will be. And so that's also underway. All of that happened. All of that work took place in the fall semester, in year one of last year's 2-year pathway. We had some great athletic successes on campus in the fall semester. It almost seems like it was an eon ago. Our football team were ODAC conference champions. That was exceptional. That was an unbelievable year. I mean, JMU has always had great success in football, and to bring that to Bridgewater was just outstanding. It engaged our alumni and friends in ways that's really hard to describe. I hope many of you were able to be a part of that excitement here. I suppose whether or not we get to play in the spring remains to be seen. We may set another record for the longest reigning ODAC champion in a sport. for football based on that. We'll see. Coach Clark has already told his team, we're going to try to go for 3 in a row and do it in 2 years. And so we'll see how that plays out for us next year. We had an exceptional year. We've got a very strong track and field and cross country program, and we always have. And that goes back to Doc Jobson, and I mean, just a fantastic program that goes back decades. We had another great year last year with some outstanding individual accomplishments. But it also pointed out, I think, a little bit of the abruptness of the spring semester and some of the challenges the disappointments our students face. We had 5 student athletes in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, competing in NCAA track and field championships in March. And they had already left to go down. We had started to pivot to remote learning. The NCAA canceled all their championships on that Saturday, and those students didn't get to compete. And at least 2 of them were very likely to be repeat individual national champions in their disciplines. And so that was tragic for them. They were there and had to come back. And just, I think we've all struggled. We've all had disappointments. We've all had challenges. And I don't mean to suggest that others are somehow less than that, but it really brought into sharp relief how abrupt, how dramatic the shift last spring was. We're looking for continued success in those programs this year. Unfortunately, those students graduated. That opportunity is now gone. And I think all of us have to remember as we move forward, and we all will, that there will be echoes of this that just won't go away. And we need to be mindful of that and support each other for those reasons. It was an interesting spring for me personally. I was back in the classroom. I was actually teaching a class, introductory biology for majors last spring. That was my principal teaching responsibility when I was on faculty. In fact, I even got to use the same textbook I used the last time I taught it. I won't tell you how many editions are different between when I last taught it and this time, but I was in the classroom, and it was exceptional. I think for those of us who came out of the faculty into administrative roles, we never lose that. That's why I'm passionate about this job, because I got to live the core mission of the institution in a very special way for many, many years. But I was glad to get back in for personal reasons. My son, I will just share this, my son has graduated from William & Mary, and when I told him last fall I'd be teaching in the spring, there was sort of a pause on the phone, and he said, Dad, do you think you can still do that? I mean, hasn't it changed? I mean, can you, like, wow, thanks, son. Yeah, it's Darwin and Mendel, okay? You know what? I can still handle it. All right, give me a break. Anyway, I will cut to the chase and tell you that my teaching evaluations were fine, and so I get to keep my day job. So I'm thrilled about that. But I was glad to be in the classroom, not just for my students and for me, but also but for our faculty, because I got to experience both firsthand what they see every day with our students, and also because I was in the classroom when we pivoted to remote instruction. I had to do my class for half a semester, just like this, sitting in exactly this chair. And by the way, I want to thank you all for being much more attentive than my students were. I realize that you've got a different interest in this. Except some of you, the pictures seem awfully still. I don't know if you've put up a still frame and just gone to get coffee or something. It was fun. It was fun to see students change over the semester. And while we would all of us would prefer in-person instruction, I don't think there's any doubt about that. Remote instruction does offer the opportunity for some students to be engaged in ways differently than they would in person. It offers a chance for them to be sometimes a little bit more risk-taking and engage in dialogue in ways they might not. So it was a very good experience. I'm thrilled we're back. Susan's mentioned, and I know John will mention when he speaks next. Our students come back next week. I want to make sure you know, all of us have been in conversation with other private college presidents, with each other in the local community. We've been engaged with all the sorts of efforts. We are part of this community. It's not just us here. At Bridgewater, we have regular meetings with town and county officials to talk about our plans, to make sure they're aware, partly because they need to know how much attention to detail all of us have put into this reopening. We're not doing this lightly. We're not doing this casually. It's too important for that. It's too serious for that. And so like everyone else, our reopening document's available on our website. It's public. It was certified by Chev. And we have from the beginning determined that we are going to do the most that we can do that's consistent with VDH and CDC guidelines. And that's what we owe that to our students. We owe that to our mission to do that. It will look different. All of our classrooms are physically distanced. Dining hall will look different. Residence halls, public areas look different. When we bring our first year students in next week, we are still going to have some welcome week activities. It will be outdoors. It'll be physically distanced and outdoors, and students will wear masks. There's going to be activity on campus, but I know I can speak for all of my colleagues in this regard. We are very attentive to all the things we need to do well. It will depend. Our students have to participate, and we're already well into a social media norming campaign. This is about a community effort. Just like on this call right here, it's a community effort on our campus. And I'm actually confident there is no question, there are gonna be challenges in this, but we're gonna live and learn to do this together, and we're gonna do it well because of all the planning and the quality of the people that we have working on this. So I look forward to that. I look forward, hopefully, to getting a full night's sleep at some point. I guess I take, as many of you I know, I can see by the reactions. I've said this before on this call, in previous years, listen to me, when our president's breakfast in previous years, each of the colleges and universities, we're a business. We are a business. So the same challenges that each of you face, the same things you think about, payroll and utilities and insurance and everything, we face those as well. But we're a special kind of business in the nature of our core missions. And balancing those two is always, there's art and there's science in it. And especially this year, there's art and science in how we do that well, how we're attentive to mission, how we're attentive to transforming the lives of these students, our students who want something special. And we're doing everything that we can to make sure that we get that. I'm going to stop there. I am mindful of the time, and I know I want to let John Alger come up. I could talk all day. I'll close with this. Frank, after that wonderful introduction, I actually thought about just abandoning anything about the college and just talk about my training and skincare regimen. So if any of you are interested in that, just shoot me a private chat and we can catch up later. Anyway, thank you all for being here today.
Thanks, David, and you have perfect timing. The bells at Wilson Hall are ringing right now. I don't know if you can hear them through the screen. And I may want to talk to you afterward about the skincare regimen. Do you have anything for gray hair? I have to say that the past year, luckily it was already gray, and I'm not sure what comes after that, but maybe you can help me on that front. Frank always has me back cleanup at this. I do want to thank the chamber, and luckily there's not much going on at JMU. It's been a really quiet year, so not much to report. Given that we've lived, as my colleagues have said, many years over the last year, I'll try to be quick and hit some highlights for all of us. It's obviously the most unusual start of a new academic year in the university's history. It was interesting, by the way, to look back at the impact of the 1918 pandemic, which actually did have a significant impact in our community, as many of you know. The president of JMU actually became quite ill during that, had to temporarily turn over the reins to a colleague to run what was then a much, much smaller institution. So it really is an interesting and challenging time for all of us. But in the midst of all of this, we have gotten reminders that there are still good things happening. Just recently, we were once again recognized as the #1 school in Virginia for getting a job, and we certainly want that for our students as we go forward. And we hope some of them, many of them, will stay here in the Valley to get those jobs. Like my colleagues, we've of course spent the entire summer working on plans to reopen the campus safely and in cooperation with the community, staying in close touch with the Virginia Department of Health, and of course all of our decisions are guided by advice from our medical experts. You will be seeing more evidence of the cooperation of all of us, all of the higher education leaders on this call, as well as the city, the county, the local school districts, the hospital, United Way on a Stop the Spread campaign, sending consistent messages to our community about the importance of mask wearing and looking out for the community. So we're very excited to be a part of that joint effort. And of course, at James Madison University, since we are, as you probably most of you know, the largest employer and the largest economic engine in this region, we know that we have special responsibilities, particularly now as we think about how to respond to the pandemic. And as my colleagues have noted, this is a time when flexibility and adaptability are really critical. This past spring, we, like everybody else, had to move our classes, over 5,000 classes and 21,000 plus students online in a week. And we were able to do that, and the students did certainly navigate that successfully, but they also indicated that that made them recognize the importance of the in-person experience more than ever. And they really, really wanted to come back in the fall. So that's what we've been working on ever since. Over the summer, to keep many of those students, of course, fundraising was impacted everywhere by the pandemic when it hit, but we quickly pivoted to a program called Madison for Keeps, where we raised over $750,000 very quickly to keep students in school. A lot of our students had their family circumstances change, parents lost jobs and that sort of thing. So we really appreciated all the support for that effort. I did want to mention, though, some of the ways we continue to work with the community, because community engagement is very much a part of our DNA, and that became much more challenging as you went into this remote environment. But just a few examples of what that has looked like in recent months. First, we donated personal protective equipment from our academic programs to local healthcare providers. We have a lot of 3D printers on campus, so they were put into action to manufacture face shields when there were really urgent needs early on for that kind of equipment. And we even used our labs to make hand sanitizer. Who knew that the chemistry department would come in handy in that way? Our faculty and staff have worked with our local economic development partners, many of you on this call, to help businesses try to respond to the unprecedented challenges. For example, we had the Harrisonburg-Rockingham Business Resilience Task Force, which developed a guide for reopening local businesses, what was called the Co-Starters Program for area business owners, which helped entrepreneurs to adapt to the changing realities, and the Bricks and Clicks, I love that, for small business recovery, which offered training, customized technical assistance, and grants for local businesses to address health and safety issues. And I want to thank Nick Swartz. I know I saw his face somewhere here. He was one of our leaders in those efforts. Our College of Health and Behavioral Studies quickly moved to provide telehealth services to people in the community who needed healthcare. And of course, it was very difficult sometimes to go in person. Another one that I was particularly struck by, JMU faculty member Sean McCarthy. If any of you know him, he's got this wonderful Irish accent and a real can-do attitude. When he heard that the farmers market was not going to be able to reopen, he and a group of students got together and they figured out a way to help the farmers market continue to operate with online ordering and contactless pickup. So just an interesting example of how faculty and students engaged with the community to respond. And the GUS bus, which probably many of you know is a literacy program, an actual bus, but that program also went virtual to try to maintain literacy efforts for the young children in our area. One other program that I should mention that some people have asked, will this continue, is the Valley Scholars Program. Many of you know that is a program for first-generation students providing a pathway to a college education without any tuition. So JMU covers all of those costs. We identify them from 7 different local public school districts at the end of 7th grade. So they're with us for 5 years in middle and high school. We now have the second cohort enrolling at JMU in the fall, as well as at some other colleges as well. That has been a tremendous cooperative effort with the public schools, Blue Ridge, and our sister institutions as well. So we're very excited to continue that program. There are literally hundreds of first-generation students who would be first generation to go to college in that program. Now, turning to construction, always something that is important in our community, and again, an economic engine. Even with the pandemic, we were determined to complete projects that were underway and to continue with that effort. Many of you probably know the College of Business has a beautiful new building by Newman Lake, and now Shoker Hall, the old building for the College of Business, is being renovated. So someday soon, we do hope to have sort of a grand opening celebration, but it is opening this fall for our faculty and students. The Atlantic Union Bank Center is nearing completion. I'm sure you've all seen it. That's going to be a tremendous community gathering place, and we really hope that we will all be together there soon for many types of events, not just basketball. We have a new dining facility called Duke's Dining, which has a lot of grab and go options, and who knew that that would turn out to be critical to help us to manage the pandemic, because you've got to feed all of these students and figure out how to do it with physical distancing and all of the other restrictions. They also have 30 new robots that will do remote delivery. Some of you may have seen these that will literally be driving around campus. We are hoping that none of them end up in Newman Lake. Apparently they're pretty strong and sturdy, and they literally yell if someone tries to interfere with them. So hopefully that will work out well. I want to turn now quickly to another topic of civic engagement. You know, this is a time when we also are concerned about the health of our democracy. And James Madison University is very much a national leader on that front. And in a couple of different respects, there are some key things that we are working on with our local community and at the national level. One of them is with regard to voting. There are all kinds of concerns about the election this fall, and will people be able to safely vote? And so we are working with colleagues around the country on how to make sure that that can happen. Another one that has big local impact that a lot of people have been overlooking in light of everything going on is the 2020 census. That information, the census count, is used to distribute over $675 billion of federal money around the country, which affects infrastructure. And that's basically on an annual basis, a huge amount of money. And then, of course, businesses look at census data to determine whether and where to locate. So we've been working really hard in this virtual environment to make sure that we have a strong, accurate count for our area as part of the census. So there's a real need, I think, for what I call a civic renaissance in the midst of all of this, as well as economic recovery. Finally, just a few things about what to expect as we go forward. Like you've heard from others, we are bringing in our students. Move-in for first-year students has been extended over several days to make sure that that can be a safe process, starting on August 21st, and then the classes will start August 26th with that same mix that you've heard, a mix of in-person, hybrid, and online courses. We've tried to be extremely flexible to work with our faculty and students in that regard. And like everybody else, we are prepared to modify our plans and to pivot if we have to. We hope we don't have to an all online situation, but we're certainly ready to do that as needed. Like David, I actually have been teaching. I've been teaching every year in the fall. So I too will be going through that experience in a very different kind of environment. I teach a leadership seminar in our honors college. And so in a couple of days, I've got to do a walkthrough with the classroom and the technology and figuring out how we're going to make all of those things work in this environment. So it helps me to understand the challenges that our faculty and students are facing. Our students, by the way, as they come back, have to review and agree to a community pledge, which sets forth our expectations for behavior about how to protect the community and each other. And we have a similar set of guidelines for student organizations. Athletics, you've heard mentioned. Boy, this was, of course, heart-wrenching. We worked really hard to try to look at all of our alternatives. But at the end of the day, we literally could not develop a fall schedule for the fall sports. We had put a lot of protocols in place, and it was helpful to go through that experience with student athletes because it helped to prepare us for the rest of the campus. But we too are now looking at a spring season in all the fall sports as well as the spring sports. So, we're going to make up for a lot of lost time, folks. If we're able to pull this off, the spring is going to be the busiest spring we've ever seen in Harrisonburg. So we are certainly hoping for that. Certainly with a football team that's been in the national championship game 3 of the last 4 years, We know that this is a big deal and it has a big economic impact. But of course, if we're going to do that, we want to do it when it can be safe for everybody. Susan mentioned the issues of race relations and social justice, which of course have affected all of our campuses. And we too have a lot of initiatives underway. It's very much a part of our strategic plan. We do have a new task force on racial equity that will involve students, faculty, staff, community members, and alumni, all working together to look at efforts not just in the short term, but also the medium and the long term to strengthen our institution and make it more inclusive and welcoming to individuals from all backgrounds. So we're very excited about that. On economic development, Melissa Lubin. Melissa, would you give a wave? She is on the call. We are forming a new economic development council to coordinate our resources so that we can best support local economic development and recovery going forward. So please be in touch with Melissa. I know she'll be in touch with many of you, but we recognize that this has to be a joint effort as we look at economic recovery and resilience as we move forward. The Madison Vision Series, many of you have participated in those speaker events, which have typically been live on campus. That is pivoting for now to a virtual format, and we're actually going to be working with Bridgewater as a partner on September 30th. We'll be welcoming ACLU attorney Emerson Sykes to talk about the power of free speech on college campuses, which of course is a hot topic right now, and we'll certainly share information about those future events. We still want the community to participate even in the virtual environment. And last, I would just mention that when the pandemic first started, we all, of course, had to respond on a day-by-day basis to the health and safety issues. But we also recognized immediately, as Susan said, that crisis also brings opportunity for innovation. And so immediately when the pandemic started, I appointed a task force to focus on innovation and learning arising out of this experience. So while we have all of these people focusing on how do we safely reopen, we had another group whose focus was on how to learn and innovate coming out of the pandemic, thinking about how you teach, how you learn, your business practices, and every aspect of what we do at the university. So we didn't want to lose this opportunity. And when you look at the creativity over the past several months, as you've heard from my colleagues, we've had virtual summer camps. We have, like Susan mentioned, a new interdisciplinary class on COVID-19 that was offered over the summer. It's being expanded and will be offered again this fall. Virtual tours of campus. And of course, even using every space available, including the Arboretum, as a classroom. So we are doing everything in our power to innovate, to be creative at this time. And we certainly look forward to partnering with all of you as we go forward. We're going to come out of this stronger and better than ever, but only if we all work together. It's great to be with all of you. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, John and Susan and John and David. We're going to keep going for a couple minutes, as long as y'all have time. One of the beauties of Zoom is that those who usually sit up front get stuck there to the very end of a breakfast, and the ones in the back can scoot out unnoticed. But on Zoom, someone just sends me a chat and says, I got to drop off. Thanks. So I have two questions. The first thing I want to do, though, before I ask the questions is just sort of mention one thing. I was sitting here, John, as you were talking about some of the impacts, is one reason we started this back in 2010 is, you know, everyone, I don't want to say takes the educational facilities and institutions for granted whatsoever, but again, that was coming right out of sort of the last downturn, and people did not quite, I think, understand the specific impact of construction and students. So this has been going on for that specific reason, you know, ever since, is that it helps not only to see numbers, but then also listen to everything that's going on that, again, you may not read about in a short story or just, you know, catch on the news, you know, at night. So again, we appreciate your time as always. The two questions I have for everybody, we'll go sort of in reverse order, John, since you're still on my screen here, is what does enrollment look like this year? And how are you doing in compared to your peer institutions? So if you'll start, we'll roll right back to Dr. Downey at the end.
Thanks, Frank. Well, you know, we were really fortunate on enrollment. We do have right now a robust enrollment. We do have a freshman class coming in that is slightly larger than we had last year. And so all of our fingers and toes are crossed. Some of those students, of course, are going to be virtual. Many others, of course, are coming back. Many of them are already here, living off campus, as you've probably seen. And I have to say, the students I have seen and interacted with, I see them wearing masks. I see them doing the things that we're asking them to do. So I'm really pleased about that. But the enrollment is strong. We are just shy of 22,000 students. You know, there were a lot of predictions in higher education that schools like ours would lose 20% or more because of this pandemic. And I'm knocking on wood right now. We have not seen that, but of course, all of us are concerned about, you know, what happens as we go forward. And that's why we were determined to figure out everything that we could do to have in-person, hybrid, and online classes to accommodate all of those students that wanted the kind of experience that JMU offers. So luckily, we're in good shape right now on that front.
And as compared to your peers, you talk to anybody else with some of that same experience, or are they finding they're losing a few extra?
It's all over the map, Frank. I've certainly heard of many institutions that have had really significant drops in enrollment, particularly a lot of public comprehensive universities like ours, and they're facing severe budget cuts. They've had to lay off hundreds and hundreds of people. We have not done that at JMU. And again, my fingers and toes are crossed. We've all taken some really significant budget hits and incurred additional expenses. So that's a big concern. But yes, I think we're actually doing much better than most of our peers nationally. But of course, in order to continue that, we've got to have the strong support we hope from the state, and we've got to be doing everything we can to control the pandemic.
David?
Yeah, so we were actually on a pace last March before we had to pivot remote to exceed all of our enrollment goals for the fall. And there were lots of reasons for that. We're going to be, when we got into June and July, when you can really start making predictions, we're going to end up almost precisely where we thought we'd be. We'll be somewhere between in the mid to upper 1,500s or 1,600 students. I don't know. We'll wait and see. Like John, I'm knocking on wood. You know, I mean, you can predict all you want, and our models are usually pretty sensitive, but until the students show up, you don't know. I will say we've been attentive in lots of ways to the economic pressures, and frankly, the what I'd call broader health concerns and anxieties that a lot of our students, it's not just we all that feel that, right? It's these families who are sending their students sometimes very long distances to join us. So I'll just let you know, Frank, the private colleges, we were right in the middle of the pack in terms of impact on fall enrollment. They were very few private institutions, in fact, I think you can count the number on one hand, are going to have higher first-year enrollments or beat their predictions from last year. I mean, there are certainly some students taking a year off. There are some students who are going to be going to community college or maybe public universities closer to home. It's a little hard to tease all that out, but we're, relative to our peers, we're in a good place. I will say, I didn't mention this, but one of the things that we did over the summer is waived our residency requirement. We are, unless you live very close to campus, a fully residential campus, and we waived that requirement for all students. And we had about 15% of our student population choose to be remote learners on that basis. And we actually gained some students who had told us they were going to take a semester off for health concerns. When they learned they could learn remotely and not be a residential student, they signed back up. And so I'm grateful for the long-term financial strength of the institution. Yeah, this is hard on a budget. I mean, there is no doubt. You can't, I mean, that was, the impact on your businesses, all of you, was great as well. But for us to send students home and refund essentially, you know, half a semester's worth of room and board revenue, that's a big hit on a budget. And we made it good. We've made some really hard decisions about the budget, not just to make up for last year. And of course, we benefited from the CARES Act and the PPP program, as many of you have. But we made some hard internal decisions to be good stewards and to actually set ourselves up for a positive budget year this year as well. So that's where we are for that.
Thank you. Susan?
Yeah, we are cautiously optimistic that we will be holding our own this fall, particularly with the undergraduate enrollment population, which is our primary revenue driver. At least up until a week ago, we were probably looking at a 7% increase over last year for undergraduates, but this is a very different time in all kinds of ways. We often refer to it as melt. It usually starts happening around May or June. And we just know there is still a lot of uncertainty around whether some of these students will actually come and get in their cars and pack up and arrive. But we actually budgeted for quite a bit fewer students, just wanting to be particularly prudent. And we are doing well on that front. We've also invested in additional personnel around enrollment, innovation and enrollment in the last 6 months. So that piece looks pretty good in relation to our peers. Of course, Dave Bushman is a member of the Council of Independent Colleges of Virginia. There's 28 of us. Dave, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the last data that I saw on that among the 28 is that we're holding steady or maybe 1% ahead in enrollment. And in a pandemic, that is a real strong indicator of success. I mean, we have to, I mean, in a normal year, that would seem sluggish. You know, as John mentioned, the early predictions, and they were dire, is that all of us were going to lose about 20% of our student body because, you know, folks not only had the health concern, but also the economic concern and whether they'd have jobs or whether their parents would have jobs. So again, we are knocking on wood. We're cautiously optimistic. Our graduate numbers always come in at a much later time, and not all of our graduate programs start on August 25th. We are about neatly divided between 800 undergraduates, 800 graduate students, but even on the graduate front, we look pretty good at this particular time compared to where we were last time. But lots and lots of issues around how we have made it affordable for students to come. We have increased our discount rate. We have leaned on generous supporters to help us in tuition relief funding to bridge the difference. You know, these are economic issues. They're also social justice issues. So it remains a real challenge, and we feel like we're holding our own.
Thank you. And John, to wrap things up.
Like my colleagues, we were concerned about, you know, the predictions of 20% decline and things, but I think we're going to end up even or slightly up over last year. We still have 2 weeks until classes start on the 24th, and community colleges tend to get over half of their enrollment the month before classes start. So we'll have the next 2 weeks and the first week of classes. We register students through that first week of classes. Like my colleagues, I also teach Intro to Psychology every semester, and I had to pivot to online. And, you know, there were a lot of people saying, if it's online, I'm not going to like it and it's going to be awful. I was surprised, pleasantly surprised by how much engagement you can get in a classroom using Zoom. Of course, Blue Ridge offers synchronous instruction as well as asynchronous. For those of you who don't understand that lingo, the synchronous means some faculty deliver the courses like we're doing now in person over Zoom. Asynchronous means some faculty allow you to take the class anytime you want and give you packets of information and then interact with you using video and those kind of techniques. So I think students have been pleasantly surprised by how engaging distance learning has been. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, we still have about 20 to 25% of our instruction that will be in person, that has to be in person, and it's critical to the economy of this region. We produce over half the nurses in the region, for example, every year in terms of our graduates who tend to stay in the area and work in the area. Manufacturing continues to be very concerned about the future of their workforce, and so the programs we offer in that regard are critically important to the region. So we're working hard, as are my colleagues, to make sure that both online and in-person instruction are done safely, effectively, in an engaging way, And I can't say enough about my faculty and staff and administrators who have worked really tirelessly to make sure that that instruction gets delivered well. I'm just so pleased. It's easy to be the president when you have people working for you that are so committed to students, and it shows every single day.
Thank you. And let me go ahead and I guess at that, looking at the time, we'll go ahead and wrap up. Ran a little bit, but that's fine. Good information. I'd stay here, but I'm not sure how many other people are going to hold on Zoom for a while longer. And I know y'all have things to do. So again, I just one more time, thank you all very much for being with us again. I know this time last year, we did not envision being on a Zoom call at this point in time. And again, those who signed on and have listened, we appreciate your attendance as well. This has been recorded, so we'll try to make this available at some point. I know a couple people had to drop off. So with that, again, let me thank everyone who participated in this, and also thank JMU, Nick and Justin who helped set this up. We are actually using JMU Zoom versus ours because it's got a little bit more robust capabilities and we could hold more people. So again, everybody have a good day, and hopefully the next breakfast of this sort will be in person.
Thank you
Have a good
all.
day.